Welcome to another episode of Estate Planning Nightmares and How to Avoid Them. This is a show which highlights the importance of estate planning and why everyone needs to do it. And of course, the unfortunate consequences of what happens far too often when people have not planned. I'm your host, John Braddock, the author of Click Here When I Die, and the founder of My Life and Wishes, the Legacy Vault, an online planning and document storage solution created specifically to make things easier for those you love. Today, I'm very excited to have with us Megan Stokes. She is the founder of the law offices of Megan Stokes, based in Chicago, Illinois. Megan established her firm in 2013 with a vision to break away from traditional law model and create true, lasting relationships with her clients. By offering flat fees for most services, she ensures her clients know exactly what they're paying up front, without the worry of unexpected charges for advice. This approach allows her clients to focus on what matters most, getting the legal guidance that they need without the hesitation of additional costs for phone calls and emails. Now, Megan specializes in real estate and estate planning, helping families protect their assets, avoid conflict, and most importantly, stay out of court. She also works with clients to grow their real estate investment portfolios and navigate the complexities of buying and selling real estate. Her commitment to education and minimizing the stress of legal processes is at the heart of her practice. She earned her undergraduate degree in marketing with a minor in international business from the University of Chicago, or University of Illinois, at Chicago, followed by her law degree from John Marshall Law School. Licensed since 2011, she has been providing top-notch legal services through her firm since 2013. Welcome to the show, Megan.
Thank you, John. It's great to be here.
Terrific. So happy to have you. Say, did I miss anything in the bio? Anything you want to expand on? Did I lie?
No, you definitely didn't lie. I believe all of those things. Yeah, nothing really that I can think of that you missed. I think we'll get more into kind of my philosophy and my model of practice throughout this
Terrific.
podcast. Yeah.
Terrific. Well, I'm excited to have you. I know we've known each other for a couple of years, and it's just going to be fun to have a nice conversation with you here today. But as our audience knows, I always like to talk about passion. The thing that gets
hmm
us up in the morning, the why behind what we do. And so in your bio, it indicated, you started out in real estate, but found that real estate and estate planning kind of go hand in hand, especially when it comes to families. So I'm assuming this ties into your why. So can you elaborate and share with us more about that journey?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I started off in real estate. About a year into practice, I was realizing that a lot of people were asking me if I also did estate planning. And I took a step back and realized, like you said, yes, they are very connected. After all, most of most everyone's biggest purchase is going to be their home, and they want that home to be protected should something happen to them. And so that kind of sparked my journey into estate planning. And I've really enjoyed working with all of my clients over the years. I place a lot of emphasis on education and making sure that clients understand their options throughout the process. I never want a client to leave a meeting or a conversation feeling confused, which I find can very easily happen when someone is speaking with an attorney. I work with all types of people, single people, married people, blended families, divorced families, families with adult kids, families with minor kids, people whose family is their chosen family, not their biological family. But I especially love working with families with young children because that is first who I most closely identify with, being a mom of two kids myself. And also, too, because I feel that my services can really impact and help them the most. Most people, especially families with young children, have the same goals and motivations in mind. They want to protect their loved ones, their kids, from pain, stress, hardships, want to make life as easy as possible for them, provide for them, and help them when they're able to. Parents especially want their kids to grow up feeling loved, supported, set up for success, teaching them along the way on how to be a well-adjusted person with good values. to be their definition of a good person. Now, everyone's definition of success is likely very different. Not everyone prioritizes the same values, but there is one thing that parents have in common. They want the best for their children. And so I really focus on helping families do that for their kids, protect their children, their assets, their loved ones through estate planning and real estate so that they get to choose who would raise their children and who would receive their assets when something happens to them. I do this by providing clients with a roadmap that they can give their families to ensure their wishes are honored, help lower stress and uncertainty in times of grief, and help families avoid court and conflict. All of this to give parents and families peace of mind, knowing that everything will be taken care of when, not if, when the unexpected happens. There's that saying, forgive me if I'm not quite quoting it correctly, but there's two inevitabilities in life, death and taxes. It's going to happen to everybody. Let's plan for it.
Oh, exactly. As I always like to say, because people tend to procrastinate, right? And we
Mhm.
ask, hey, have you done your estate planning or, gotten a will done? Nah, I've got time. And it's kind of like, hmm, well, that crystal ball I
Yeah.
do not have.
Can I have one of
So
those?
exactly. I definitely, well, maybe we don't want one really.
Right.
Um, but death and taxes, right? So, taxes, we all know that's April 15th. That's a date
Yep.
certain, right? We can
Yep.
procrastinate on that, but there's an awful lot of people that got up this morning, got in their car, headed into work in this country. They expect they'll do the same thing tomorrow, but they will not.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the one thing we just have to plan for. And especially, you mentioned families with kids. It is so critical that yeah, there's a will, hopefully a trust in place,
Hmm.
because guardianship matters are so key. And I know we'll probably talk about that a little bit later on here in the discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Um, so what are some of the common estate planning pitfalls that you've seen, especially with families that own property?
Okay, yeah, pitfalls here. So a lot of people try to do DIY estate planning, and I'm sure you probably had people come on here and speak to that, but that's a lot of what I see. Um, Adding, putting their kids as beneficiaries on life insurance policies so that the money goes to them. That's a huge issue if the kids if they pass when the kids are under the age of 18, minors cannot inherit property. So court has to be involved until they turn 18. I've had a lot of people say, well, I'm just going to add my kid to my home so that when I die, it passes to them. That results in a lot of unintended um, tax issues with capital gains taxes if and when their children then want to sell the property. There's possible gifting tax issues. So those are probably the two most common ones that I see.
Wow. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. There's so many things, that's why I always tell people, the DIY is not a good idea. Working with a professional estate planning attorney, they know how to ask questions and
Yeah.
extract from you what you would want in this situation or in that situation. I mean, it's easy if you're a married couple, you've got small kids, is the life insurance titled correctly? You can't leave it to the kids, as you say, because of UTMA. And and then the house, it's like, well, we'd want the kids to have a house. Well, great, but they're minors, and so you can walk through those various steps. And the second part of that is how critically important it is to uh, understand that it is not a set it and forget it proposition,
Yep.
because as times change and kids grow and you have more and the family expands or they leave home, they go to college, these documents need to be reviewed and adjusted so they do what they're intended to do, right?
Absolutely. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, terrific. All right, well, let's transition a little bit. So, as you know, my show is called Estate Planning Nightmares and How to Avoid Them. And it's not necessarily to scare people, well, maybe a little bit it is, but moreover, to get them to consider their own situation after hearing real stories of things that have happened to people. Because again, none of us have this crystal ball. So, and I know you have many of them, but you had shared with me earlier a story. So I'm wondering if you can share this kind of worst case scenario that you've seen in estate planning gone wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, fear can be a great motivator, as you said, and I wish that I made this story up for illustrative purposes, but unfortunately I did not. I have changed names and some facts to protect the family's identity. They have had a lot of issues in the past with their names being Googled, and so out of respect for the family, I've changed some names and some facts to protect their identities. But so this is a story about the Smith family. They were traveling out of state on a family vacation. The parents, Chris and Sarah, and their four children, Tom, who's 2, Jack, who's 4, Jill was 5, and Samantha was 7. They were driving along the road, and when they ended up getting into a car accident, their SUV flipped over, and unfortunately, the parents did not survive.
Hmm.
Thankfully, all of the children did with minimal injuries. Now, Chris and Sarah had talked about naming guardians, but had never gotten around to it. This is according to family members. They likely, like many of us, um, thought that their family would be able to work out who would take care of the kids and their money if anything happened. Maybe it was on their to-do list and life happened and it just kept getting pushed down. Oh, we'll handle this at some point. And then it got to the point where it was, too late to do anything about it. So not only in this case was there confusion about who should care for the children because Chris and Sarah had not legally documented their wishes, but because this happened across state lines, they were out of state for a family vacation, there was also confusion as to which court had jurisdiction, had the legal authority to decide the kid's future. So a contentious court battle ensued. Multiple family members came forward claiming that they were the best person to care for the 4 kids. There was so much conflict, so much mudslinging that happened. The kids were temporarily placed in foster care while the courts tried to sort things out. As a parent myself, this is a nightmare, thinking that this could happen to my children. So this is one of the reasons why I particularly chosen this story to share today. So, court battle happened over many years for the guardianship. There were thousands of pages of court documents filed, 9 lawyers were involved, and hundreds and thousands of dollars later, the children were placed in the care of their aunt.
So,
Now,
so
yep,
they went to foster care, and this took a couple years. How long were these? What, 2, 4, 5, and 7-year-old in foster care?
it was temporary. I don't recall the exact amount of time, but really any amount of time is too much time.
It's too long, right?
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah, especially when their parents just died.
you
Because
just lost mom and dad.
yeah, and they're taken into the care of strangers.
Wow. Yeah, and I can see in situations like that, obviously, where I mean, I'll use my own son and daughter-in-law who have a 6-month-old now,
Mm,
and they live down in the greater Phoenix area, so not that far. Um, her parents live in Northern California, and so it's one of those things without proper planning. I can see how it could be contentious. You know,
mhm.
where where's little Nick gonna go, and those kind of things, and the battle that can ensue.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm sure everyone in this situation had the best of intentions, But there was still a battle, and it still negatively impacted the children, even though I'm sure that wasn't the intention.
Wow. And
Yeah.
so ultimately it got resolved. Any property that the family had, I would assume a trust was then established for the benefit of the children if they had assets.
Yeah, so about their inheritance, right? So they were minors at the time. So any money that they inherited, it had to be managed by a professional. In the probate court process, this professional, of course, charged for his time. This was back in 2006. It was, I believe it was a little over $100 an hour back then. So imagine what it would be today in 2024. And this professional would be involved until all of the children turned 18. He did regular reporting to the court, and the court had oversight on how the children's inheritance was spent, meaning a judge decided who would manage the money, when the kids could get access to the money, with what expenses would be covered, and then when the kids could receive that money. And those were all choices that the judge made, not parents. Add to this, so not only just their normal assets that they had, but the parents' estate filed a wrongful death lawsuit related to this car accident. The judgment from that lawsuit was $19 million. $19 million. That money would be split between the kids outright when they turn 18. So what do I mean by outright? It's essentially like each kid is getting a 5 million, a little under $5 million check at the time they turn 18, and they can put it in their bank account. They can do whatever they want from it, want with it, um, without any protections around that money. That money is subject to their creditors, bad decision making on their part. What 18-year-old is going to make smart money decisions with that amount of money? I probably would have spent it on, friends, traveling, a wardrobe, maybe a car, nothing that would, last and sustain me through adulthood and set me up for success in my future. Um, and that money also was not protected from the bad influence of people who may come into their lives just to get access to the money and, use them for their inheritance.
Uh, yeah, it's been a long time since I was 18, but if I had inherited $5 million at 18 years old, I'm pretty sure that I'd be looking for work by the time I was in my mid 20s.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know if I would. I mean, well, I probably still would have gone to college, but there's the temptation there, like, oh, I have $5 million. Why do I need to go to school and get an education so I can get, a good career? I have $5 million right now. I'm set. And you're really not.
No, no. Wow. All right. So this nightmare could be avoided.
Yep.
So, what could have happened? Obviously, these folks thought they had time. They didn't have that crystal ball.
Hmm.
Um, but had they really thought this through and sat down with you, what would be the process? What would you do to make sure a situation like this never occurs?
Yeah. So I have a quick, simple, quick answer, and then the more detailed, involved answer. So first, the Smith family they're not alone in that they didn't have a plan in place. In fact, about 69% of parents haven't even named guardians for their minor children. So the simple, quick answer here is this could have been avoided with a trust-based estate plan that included guardian nominations, a roadmap, and an explanation of their wishes. Basically, anything that was legally documented to give their family a clear picture of what their wishes were, because there was none of that here. Now, the longer answer. Um, so over time, oftentimes the conflict that happens, like that happened in the Smith case here, it happens because loved ones have different ideas of what they think their deceased family members or friends would have wanted. For instance, one family member would say, "Oh, I make the most money, I have the best job, I have the most stable home environment, so I'm the best person to care for the kid. Meanwhile, another family member could say, well, I see them all the time. They're used to me, so I'm the best person to take care of the kid. So if you can spell things out in a clear, legal, and detailed way, your loved ones can feel confident and comfortable through a time of grief. We have to remember that a lot of the conflict that happens here is fueled and driven by grief. People aren't thinking clearly, their emotions are heightened, they're stressed, they can often turn to anger and frustration rather quickly. So if you can leave that roadmap behind, your family can reference that and rely on that and not the what ifs that are going through their mind. It really lets your family and your loved ones focus on the grieving process, not this legal process. So specifically, this is what the Smith family could have done. The first is have legal guardian nominations. With my clients, I provide them with something that I call a kids protection plan. It's a comprehensive guardianship nomination packet that's just a little bit more than one piece of paper that says these are the long-term guardians I name for my kids. So it comes with the long-term guardians. It also comes with short-term guardians. These short-term guardians are people who kind of step in to fill any holes or time between when the long-term guardians can travel to the kids. So, for instance, in your situation, if your son and daughter-in-law named her parents as legal guardians, they could name you as temporary. That way, in the time it takes them to travel from Northern California down to you, there's somebody that has a legal authority to care for the children. So it really eliminates the risk of children going into foster care for any amount of time. The Kids Protection Plan also has detailed, very thorough instructions and explanations for them to write down their wishes on how they want their kids to be raised and the values that they want to be at the forefront of how their children are raised. Excuse me. That way their wishes are communicated clearly. The second thing that could have been done to avoid this nightmare is to have a trust as their estate planning tool. It's not a will, because a will does not avoid the probate process, only a properly funded trust. So they would have to have the trust, they'd fund all of the assets into the trust. That is the most important part of a trust, the funding process. Without it, the trust is useless, and you just paid a lot of money for something that's not going to work. The trust avoids the probate process, and you have an added benefit when your beneficiaries are minor children. You get to keep the money from going to them outright. You get to prevent court oversight and involvement in managing that money until they turn 18. So if the Smith family would have had a trust, the funds from the lawsuit could have gone into the trust. So that $19 million would have been put into the trust. The court would not have any say on how the money would be spent, which means more money for the kids when they eventually do get distributions from the trust. There's two main ways that the trust could have been set up to give creditor protection. So the first way has minimal creditor protection. The money that the kids receive could stay in trust until they reach certain ages or even stages in their life. A very common distribution scheme I see is a third at 25, half of the remaining at a third at 25, half of the remaining at 30, and then whatever's left at 35. There's minimal creditor protection there because once the money is distributed to the kids at those ages, then the creditors can come after it if they need to. But at least while it's sitting in the trust, it can be protected. But there is a better way to protect the inheritance. And that is with something that I call a lifetime asset protection trust. that money stays in trust for the lifetime of the kids. You get maximum creditor protection. So any potential, credit card companies, lawsuits, if they hit somebody and are found at fault, if they get divorced in the future, all of that money can be protected in those instances.
Interesting. Interesting. So yeah. So wow. So just a little pre-planning can go a long way, but
Yep.
which is why I think trusts are so important for people to have, especially with kids, is to
Mhm.
earmark those stages that, like you say, with all that money in there, maybe one provision could be if we're not here, that at 18, they can have this amount if in fact they go to college
Yep.
to pay for the college. And then, if they don't, they're going to wait till 25, like you say, and, stuff will pay out. But that's the thing. It's like the whole important thing is, what is it that you want to have happen with your family, with your kids, if you're not here? And being able to spell that out on the front end, and instead of letting a judge in a robe in a courtroom
Yeah.
make
That
those
doesn't know
decisions.
you or your family. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Wow. 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 So it's alarming to hear that 69% of parents haven't named guardians for their kids.
Yep.
And again, we can speculate this, but why do you think so many families put that off, especially now they have kids? Do they have
Yeah.
that "this will never happen to me" attitude?
I really think it's one of two things. Um, Life happens. It's on their list. They recognize it. They recognize it's important, but they have to work. They have to get the kids to all their activities during the week. They have to take care of their own parents who may have, like, life happens, and we often have a running to-do list, and oftentimes I think it can just get pushed down that to-do list. Um, Another reason I think is avoidance. People don't like to think about dying. It's not a comfortable topic. It's not a comfortable conversation to have. So they avoid it and they're like, no, that's not going to happen to me. I'm not going to die until I'm, in my 80s. I'm going to die in my sleep. And, that's what's going to happen. This isn't going to happen to me.
Yeah, that would be nice if we all could do that.
Yeah.
But sadly, a
Yeah.
lot of us won't. So, what would your advice be, or how can families take the first step in estate planning, especially if they're feeling either overwhelmed or they're unsure about the process? What would your recommendation be?
So, first step that they can do is, I would say, so I'm a type A person. I say research. I would think, I wanted to say it first, research on, Google it and see about some things that could happen. But really, like, who wants to do that? You're avoiding it anyway. I think probably just the easiest thing to do is just start having conversations, parents, spouses, start having conversations with each other, get more comfortable talking about it. Um, Talk about your wishes, because this also goes beyond just what happens to my assets when I die. Effective and comprehensive estate planning also deals with what happens if I'm unable to make my own decisions, like medical wishes, financial wishes. So really, we have to stop making this, death and incapacity and all of that. We have to stop making it such a taboo topic.
Right.
Um, yeah,
Yeah,
get more
it's
comfortable with it, and then reach out to an attorney.
yeah, absolutely. And here's the things, folks. So a lot of people will say, well, yeah, I know I should, but it's expensive. Well, in the Smith family case, who did not invest in an estate plan with a professional estate planning attorney, it ended up costing hundreds of thousands of
Mhm.
dollars. The estate plan and I can't speak for what part of the country you're all in, but I know that there are excellent estate planning attorneys that can put a trust and a plan in place for you between $2,500 and $5,000. And even if I'm not in a terrible accident that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, if I don't have a plan and my estate goes to probate, it is going to cost my family probably 25 to $50,000 and probably up to 2 years of their time. So
Yep.
it's the would you rather situation, right? Would you rather invest a little bit now and make sure that everything goes to family in a timely fashion in the future, or do you just don't care because you're going to be gone, which is kind of
Yeah.
selfish.
Some people just don't care. And to each their own. But I like how you phrased it, that it's an investment. It's not meant to be cheap. Too much is at stake for it to be something that is cheap. It is an investment. Effective estate plans really go just beyond document production. Even so, your legal Zooms, your forms online, I caution against those because all that is document production. You're not talking things through with an attorney. Those programs don't recognize that is more than just the plan. Not all attorneys even recognize that it's more than just the plan in the documents. So it's important to work with an attorney that recognizes that you have to involve your family. You need to be organized, make things as easy as possible for your family. When I work with clients, everything gets organized into a binder. I have them gather all of their financial accounts, all of their assets. We list it on one asset spreadsheet. So bank accounts, business interests, retirement plans, stock options, life insurance policies, it's all there with all the information your family is going to need. So when the time comes, they open up that binder and they have everything at their fingertips to do what they need to do to move your estate through the process. Um, you also need, this is very important, and because death is still a taboo topic, um, you have to make sure your family knows that you have a plan. Too often times people have no idea if their parent, aunt, grandpa, if they have a will or a trust or anything in place. And so they're spending time when they should be grieving and just focusing on that. They're spending their time going through mounds of paperwork through their computers. It's unnecessary. Or maybe they know that there is a plan, but they don't know where it's at. And at that point, if you can't find it, it might as well not exist.
Right. Well, that's what I call the morbid scavenger hunt. That's when
Yeah.
family has to come to your house. They got to dig through boxes and file drawers. And is there a life insurance policy? And how do we find that? Where's the document
Hmm.
located? And, the sad thing is almost $10 billion in life insurance has gone unclaimed in the United States. That's because beneficiaries didn't know they were a beneficiary
Yeah.
on a policy. And much like my father-in-law, who had a safe deposit box on the north side of the city with no other accounts. None of us knew it existed, only him and the bank. And after a very exhaustive search of every credit union and bank in the geographic area, we found a box. And inside the box was 752 paper shares of IBM stock.
Ooh,
Folks, some secrets should not be taken to the grave because that
no.
came very close to us just saying he had a box at some point in time, but closed it and couldn't find the key uh, when he did. So yeah, be sure you have a plan first and foremost. Then be sure family know you have a plan, and not to be a Debbie Downer. I mean, as near as I can figure, people have been on this planet for 300,000 years. And I still think the odds are pretty close to one out of one of us are going to die. Therefore, it doesn't have to be taboo. Uh,
Mm-mm.
the holidays are coming. This is family time. What better time to have a conversation with family about your plans. I don't have a plan. Do you have a plan? We should make a plan. That should be our New Year's resolution, is to have a plan in place so that we
Yep,
all know what's going on. So awesome.
absolutely.
Hey, Megan, how can our audience reach out to you if they have questions about their own planning or questions in general?
Yeah, so the easiest way is either to give me a call or shoot me an email. My phone number is 312-890 9581. You can email me at m.stokes@meganstokeslaw.com. That's MEGHANSTOKESLAW.com. I'm also on LinkedIn and Facebook. Shoot me a request, follow me. I like to post little educational tidbits. Education is very important to me, as I talked about earlier. I like to make legal questions and the legal process more intellectually accessible for people. So I have a lot of things on there as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, Megan, thank you so much for
Thank you.
joining me today, sharing these powerful insights. Your work in helping families avoid these nightmare scenarios and your dedication to making it easier for families is truly inspiring. And for those who want to reach out to Megan, I encourage you to do so. I have included all of her contact information that she mentioned in the show notes, so feel free to reach out to her. For those of you listening, don't wait. Start your estate planning today. Make sure your loved ones are protected. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Estate Planning Nightmares and How to Avoid Them. I'm John Braddock, and remember, your life is your legacy. So plan ahead and make it a great day.